I'm Kandas Rodarte. This is Gratitude Geek, the podcast for Gen X women who know that gratitude is a business strategy. Today, we are chatting with Kira Hartley Klinger, a writer, vintage fabric reseller, and accidental entrepreneur who built a six-figure Etsy business by turning other people's junk into stories, income, and a fresh start after 40. Welcome, Kira.
Thank you, Kandas. Great to be here.
So you and I have something in common. I also built a six-figure business on Etsy.
Really?
It was not easy. We actually stopped selling on Etsy when we took a $30,000 order, and Etsy took $5,000 of it.
Yeah, it hurts.
But for folks that aren't selling super high-end product, it is a great platform, and I'm still a fan of Etsy. I love the way that it's opened up a market for indie sellers across the world. So talk about your journey. How did you become an Etsy reseller?
Etsy was kind of accidental. I started in eBay when probably in eBay's first decade. It was back in 2003, I think, when I first opened my eBay account. And I was buying and selling things just kind of for fun. Can I make money on this? It's a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, turn it into a couple hundred there. It was fun to see if I could make money. But it was just a hobby. I was still married. I was still raising my kids. I was always doing little things on the side to generate extra money. That was also an opportunity for me to get together. I had one very good friend, and we used to go to auction houses together. And so it was a social thing too. So when I ended up getting divorced at 40, I just wondered if I could make a go of it, rather than go get a full-time job somewhere, because I kind of always worked for myself. I didn't even know what that looked like. I'm like, I wonder if I can make a go of this. So I did, and I was buying and selling anything and everything on eBay. At one point, I started to buy and sell fabric. The only reason I bought it in the first place was because nobody else wanted it. That was kind of my lane. I was waiting for the stuff that nobody else wanted and taking it home. And fabric ended up being one of those things. I didn't know anything about fabric. I knew nothing about fabric. I can do upholstery. I can do quilts. I can sew, but I can't sew, So, yeah, I learned about it. I looked at other people's sites and listings, and I picked people's brains, and it was a journey. It was a process. But it got to the point where I found myself actually looking for fabric because I wanted to grow a larger inventory. I wanted it to be something where people could come and fill a cart, make a bigger order, not just one here, one there. And the more you have, the more you're going to attract people that are actually looking for fabric. So fabric was getting lost in a sea of a million other things that I buy and sell. And it got to the point where I really felt like it needed its own lane. The other thing that started to happen too, a lot of fabric started to appear on eBay from China, and I couldn't compete. China could sell it for dirt cheap. China could offer free shipping because of the agreement that they had with our government. So yeah, I needed something different. And the people on Etsy, they're fabric people and craft people and artsy people. So it just found a really good home there. And you were talking about people who sell smaller scale things. Well, that's me. I'm $3 here, $5 here, $8 here, $12 there, but it all adds up. Geez, I think I opened up there maybe 8 years ago. I have like 17,000 sales on Etsy. It astonished me because I added it up just randomly the other day, and I had, I don't know, 36,000 sales on eBay. And it's like, I'm putting all these numbers together and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've sold more than 50,000, unique items. It's crazy.
When you're selling on Etsy and eBay, you need to learn how to ship
Yes.
because
Yes, you do.
shipping can break you.
Shipping is insane. Oh my gosh. The rules of shipping changes constantly, and you really have to stay up to date. Dimensions are huge. When it asks you to fill in your dimensions, take it seriously. fill in the exact weight as close as you can get. Go over before you go under if you're guessing. Fill in the exact dimensions that you think it's going to take to ship it in a box. Because an inch can mean the difference between spending $10 and spending $30. It's crazy. And if you don't give the right dimensions in your shipping calculator for the buyer well, they don't use it, it's automatic, but you can't take it back later. You can't go back to the buyer and say, hey, I didn't measure this right. I need another $20 for shipping. You know what I mean? It's not very professional. So that is the single most important thing. Take advantage of the shipping calculator that the sites automatically use and be accurate. Spend the extra time to do it. Yeah, it gets crazy. I'm really, really happy that the post office came out with a ground shipping again. They've gone back and forth, whether it was first class or whether it was first class parcel, or they change it constantly. And then for a while there, if it was over a pound, you could only ship priority. And that hurt all of us because priority was so expensive. So now I think it's only been in the last year that they brought back a ground service. And that ground service, if it's over a pound, it's the best way to go. So if it gives you the option to choose your shipping options for the customer, I always put ground as the default, and then you can put priority in there if they want to choose that to expedite it. But then they're paying the difference. You're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, shipping is an education, ongoing.
And it's like anything in business. Taxes, everything. The number one advantage of Etsy is that they take care of the sales tax for you.
Yes, eBay
so
too.
that you don't have to file sales tax in 50 different states.
They also streamline it, shipping it internationally too. A lot of people that I know, they're terrified. I'm not shipping international. I'm not selling overseas. That's crazy. A long time ago, I had a ton of customers in Australia and Japan. Back then they came out with that padded flat rate envelope.
Mm-hmm.
I could fit 11 yards of fabric in that padded flat rate envelope. And at the time it was shipping anywhere overseas for $16.95. And I shipped overseas all the time. Now that flat rate envelope, my goodness, I think it's like 30 some dollars, 35, 36 upwards. I don't get that many international sales anymore. Once in a while I do. And they always pay tremendous shipping. And I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
But I think people who live in other countries are used to paying shipping, high ship. I mean, we have the lowest postage in any country. I mean, the amount of money that as Americans we spend to send a letter from point A to point B is like a third of what any other country spends on postage. We always forget to be thankful.
But now I'm going to point something out though. If you were to ship, let's say, a 2-pound shoebox with shoes in it to Turkey, what do you think you'd have to pay to ship that to Turkey?
$40.
At least. And
Yeah.
I have a favorite shoe company that is in Turkey. I love they're these vegan graphic art shoes. They make boots, they make sandals. They're amazing. But anyway, I think the last time I bought 2 pairs of boots, it cost $16.90 to ship both of them from Turkey. And now I did have to pay a tariff this last time I did it. I think that they're just paying it forward, or we got to pay it now. You got to pay it now, whatever.
Well, that's the way tariffs work.
Yeah.
The way a tariff works is the person who consumes it is the one who pays it.
Yeah. Yeah. But
It's a
they didn't
tax,
used to. Yeah. I didn't used to have to pay the tariff ordering from them. But the last time I did.
Well,
So
the tariffs are new. We didn't have those
they
before.
are. No. And so that makes everything different too. That's a whole nother discussion.
So you basically turned this hobby into your business. And I am a crocheter. I'm a hooker. I love to crochet. I oftentimes wear sweaters that I've made, and people comment on it. Oh, that's just such a beautiful sweater. You should sell them. And I'm thinking to myself, if I were to sell this sweater, it would be $600-700. That would be how much I'd have to charge for it. And I just don't want to do that. I don't want to turn my hobby, which gives me pleasure, into a business. Because then
that does not pay you well.
No. I was just talking to Paul Pape last week about pricing art. And he talked about how when you're just starting out as an artist, you should pay yourself minimum wage. Minimum wage is $7.85 or something like that. That is not enough money to live on.
No, it's not
Okay,
enough to
it's
get me out
fine.
of bed in the
It's a
morning.
fine advice if you have a full-time job and you want to sell your art on the side. But again, if I were to make sweaters for other people, I would charge $150 an hour. I would not charge minimum wage because
We're
I'm worth
not 16
$150
years
an hour.
anymore.
Yeah.
We're not teenagers anymore. And
So
it's the
I
same
mean, it was
thing.
a fantastic interview, and I'm not disparaging Paul because most of the stuff that he said made a lot of sense, but I disagreed with him on that.
I am with you because I do upholstery and I like to do it. I like to do it for myself. I like to do it for friends, family, whatever. I love making something new out of something old. And I get people all the time, "Oh my gosh, you should like hire yourself out for this." No.
No.
Not only would I not make it my time, but I have ruined my I've ruined my hands over the years. The arthritis in my hands is so bad because of all of the things that I love to do with my hands. So no, my broken hands are not for hire.
Yeah. Let's talk about mistakes. What are some mistakes that you've made along the way in growing this business? Because you
Ugh.
have what a lot of women want. You have a six-figure business doing something you love.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's not six figures every year. It's an ebb and flow, you know. But yeah, you know what? I do love it. Honestly, it's one of those things, and it's bad. I call it feeding the pig. But and this will speak to your somebody spent 30,000 and Etsy took 5,000. If you don't routinely feed your stores, feed your inventory, feed your customers, it's going to, you don't even get seen. I mean, there is no fizzle out because it just, the way that the algorithms work is that the more you feed into the system, the more visible you are. And that's true in leaving feedback for people. That's true in putting new inventory. That's true in getting rid of old inventory. You can't just decide that this is a 1 day a week job where you're going to get on there and you're going to, do 1 day's worth of work and I'm taking the rest of the week off. It doesn't work that way. It'd be much better served to spend 2 hours every day on it than to try to do it all in 1 day. The more momentum you give it, the more it gives back to you. So that's something I've had to learn over the years. And my numbers have been down the last couple years, mostly because I've been taking time away. My dad's been sick, so I've been traveling pretty much every month and I have to shut down when I'm gone, you know. So, yeah, it comes right back and reflects on you.
But your business gives you a little bit of flexibility.
Yes. And that is one of the things why I love it so much. The fact that I can it took me a long time. I did not become debt free until a couple years ago. So the fact that my house is now paid for and our cars are paid for, I mean, we're debt free. So that makes it easier too. It takes the pressure off of having to produce larger numbers. Quite honestly, the older I get too, it's like when I was younger and always broke all the time, all I could dream about was making more money, making more money, making more money. And it was never enough. It just was never enough to get out of debt and to get over that hurdle. And it was an obsession. And later, when things have caught up finally, and I've gotten to the point of being debt free and I've gotten to the point where I can coast now, it's like money it's a tool. It's not something that I am driven to keep pursuing more and more and more of. I like to be able to pay my bills on time. I like to be able to leave if I need to go be with my family. I like, to be able to take a trip with my husband. It's just, yeah,
I think that's the difference. The difference between being debt free and having debt is when you are debt free, money is a tool. When you have debt, money is a necessity and a
yeah,
burden. I mean,
yeah.
your debt really is a burden. It is amazing how freeing it is not to have any.
I do carry a credit card and I do use it, but I use a credit card that gives me points every time I buy an airplane ticket. So eventually I'll get
Oh,
another
well, yeah.
airplane ticket,
Hmm.
and I always pay it off every month. I don't pay interest on it because I make sure I pay it off. Um, I absolutely adore these credit card companies that will send you a thing. Hey, spend $1,000 in the next 90 days and we'll give you $500 back. Okay. Because,
If you're paying it off and you're getting your $500.
oh, we have bought so many fun things by doing that. We've gone on trips and I think I bought a computer one time with my $500.
But see,
So
what you're
yeah,
doing
bring them
there
on.
is you're gaming their system
Mhm.
instead of them gaming you.
I will take their free money. I have paid into the system for so long.
They're counting on the people who pay the 20% interest, right? Every month or every year, the way it's compounded, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But they're counting on making more than $500 off of the interest on the $1,000 that you spend. That's what they're counting on. And you're their worst nightmare.
And once upon a time, that was me. Once upon a time, 100%, I would collect that money just because I'm like, oh, free money, and then it would just put me further in debt. I have heard that you can only apply for this or get this free money like every 4 years. But there are so many banks and credit cards out there that want to keep throwing money at me.
Well, while we're talking about money,
Mm,
talk about financing your business. Did you have to do any financing for your business?
no,
You
no,
just,
not one penny. I had no money when I started. I had nothing. So the only thing I could do, I would buy things that cost $2. And I still do that. It's my favorite. The end of the auction is my favorite thing to do. All the boxes at the end, stuff that they would have thrown away. I'll take them all home and I'll dig through them and I'll find something in there that's worth money. You know. So no, I never financed anything. Does that mean I never went into debt at an auction? Well, not debt that I didn't get paid back. There was a period where I had reserve accounts set up to my bank account, overdraft protection, that sort of thing, horribly high interest rate things. But if I went to an auction that was really, really good and I needed to spend $1,000 or $2,000 and I only had 200 in the bank account, yeah, I'm 100% guilty of dipping into that temporarily.
yeah.
But no, I did not ever take out loans like that.
So let's talk about your business model. You buy at auction and then you resell it on Etsy
Or eBay.
or eBay. And you're specifically looking for fabric, but do you sell other things?
I will buy and sell anything that is worth money. eBay is a jumble of whatever I have currently found, and it could be anything. I've sold some crazy things. I sold the door from an old fire truck, for crying out loud. I mean, I have bought and sold some ridiculous things. You want to talk about shipping nightmares, but Etsy is 100% vintage fabric and textiles and, antique fabric, antique textiles.
So
I
you
will
really have two
buy,
businesses.
I do. And
Okay.
if you want to throw my books in the mix, I have three.
You have three.
I have three. Yeah.
You have one business with three different arms.
Yes.
A lot of folks, they get this idea of diversification really, really wrong. You are diversified because you have three different income sources within one umbrella.
Yes.
And that is the way to diversify. Some people think that diversification is buying 6 completely different companies.
I'd go mad. My brain cannot remember what I had for dinner yesterday, let alone try to sort out that many business. And everything that I do feeds each other. They're all holding hands. It started with eBay branched into Etsy, Etsy branched into the books, and it turns this big circle. Everybody holds hands with each other. And the public speaking that I do, I take my book and parts of my shop. I speak at quilting guilds. And I'll go in and do an hour presentation. We'll talk about fabric. We'll talk about, my stories, the books, because it all talks about where things come from that I buy. It's the stories. It's a hilarious look at humanity. I talk a lot about the auctioneers, the competition. And yeah, I talk about things that I buy and sell. There's also bits and pieces of my life journey in there. And if you want to throw in a fourth nugget, at some point, I had to create a product because when you're buying all these vintage fabrics and textiles and whatnot, everything comes with smells. It's inevitable. Everybody's
Mhm.
house smells like something. And a lot of people don't like the smells of things that are different or offensive or, cigarette smoke, must, mold, animals, pet, you name it. We all smell like something. So in my business on Etsy, I had to figure out a way to remove the smell from the product. And you can't always wash the things that I sell on Etsy. Sometimes I get, 100-year-old quilts, 200-year-old quilts that I take apart and sell the pieces parts. You can't always throw something like that in the washing machine.
Yeah.
So I came up with a product that works in the dryer, and it's all natural. It works on dry garments, and it works by the process of steaming out the germs that cause the odor. So this is the Grammy Whammy. And that came about, gosh, it's been a while, because in order for me, I don't have any bad reviews on Etsy for odors, not one. And I
So
deal with a lot of other people's
do
stuff.
you sell this product?
I do. I do. It's in both of my shops, and
What's it called?
it's called the Grammy Whammy.
The Grammy Whammy.
So this is a Grammy Whammy.
Okay. And so you wet it and you put it in the dryer.
It's already wet. There's
Okay.
like liquid inside of here, but it's clear. See, there's no perfumes, there's no dyes, there's nothing artificial in there, no chemicals. But what they do is they work using, like, see, this one's lavender, and I've got lavender, lemon, peppermint, and tea tree. And all four of those natural oils have odor killing properties naturally. So that works with the other things that are inside this. Yeah, you throw the whole thing in the dryer and it creates a steam that kills the germ that's causing the odor. And so, like, in 30 minutes, whatever was stinking up, whatever, it's gone. Like, one of my favorite stories, you ever go to like a hibachi steakhouse and they cook
Oh.
at your table, and you
And then
get
you go home smelling like garlic and soy sauce?
right, and you've got like your wool coat on, and your wool coat now smells like garlic and soy sauce and grease. You can throw this in there with your wool coat on low for 30 minutes and it's gone, completely gone. It's not a
Wow.
cover up, and it just smells like
And your wool
nothing.
coat won't shrink?
No, because it didn't go in there wet. If you were to wash it first, yeah, it'd probably shrink. But all you're doing is making a steam. That's what the dry cleaners do. The dry cleaners operate on
That's true.
steam.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So when I go to quilting guilds, I usually sell out of these things, because people who quilt, they don't want to wash their quilts every time their quilts need freshened up,
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah.
Well,
So
it's the same with crocheted blankets.
my sister likes to knit, and she lives up in upstate New York. And so she lives very close to the where they have the annual Sheep and Wool Festival. And so she always goes there to buy her yarn. She bought these little teeny skeins of yarn that were made from the belly fur of a buffalo.
Wow.
She paid like $100 for these itty bitty little
Yeah.
rolls of yarn, and it was barely enough to make like one of those scarves, like a neck, like a,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're crazy, woman. That's nuts.
But it's something she loves,
Yeah.
it's
And it's
something she
beautiful
loves.
what she makes, but she made my dad a scarf, and I think she used two. I think it's like a $200 scarf, and my dad's afraid to wear it. She's like,
Well, then the
Dad.
labor. But if you were to buy a cashmere scarf from a high-end clothing store, it would also be $200.
True.
Her scarf was made with love.
Yes,
Made with love.
indeed.
I want to talk about how you started your business after you were 40, because that is the audience listening to this right now, are women over 40 who are, most of them already have a business, but some of them are thinking about it. So what was it like to go from not being a business owner to being a business owner after 40?
It was hectic and stressful, and it took a while before I'd consider myself to be profitable, but it was empowering too. I have never been I've never been a good clock puncher. I've always done much better working for myself. I don't know what's wrong with me. I am a chronically late person. I worked on the playground at the school at the same time that I was trying to get my business off the ground, and it was just 4 hours a day. And I didn't start till 10 o'clock. You would think I could get there on time. But I was like 3 minutes late every single day, and I tried to sneak in through the mail room so I wouldn't get caught. And I swear that vice principal saw me every single time, and I'd just get the look. I still have nightmares about not showing up to school on time and kids are on the playground by themselves. So I've never been a good clock puncher. So it was very empowering. It was exciting, the prospect of maybe being able to kick it off the ground.
I'm not a fan of hourly wages because I'm one of those people who can spend 8 hours at work and 6 of it I'll spend doing nothing, and then 2 hours I'll get 8 hours of work done. Why not just do the work for the 2 hours and then go home? Right? And get
Right?
paid what you're worth for the project that you finished, right? That's why I can't be employed. I'm not employable. I haven't been since I was in my 20s. Just can't. And even when I was in my 20s, I wasn't employable. I was like you. I was always late. I was the top producer, right? I made millions of dollars for the company that I worked for, but I did it on my own terms.
All they cared about was that I was late every day.
It's seriously, are you really going to count out the 5 minutes I was late versus the $5 million that I made you last month, right? Is that really, is that really what we're talking about?
I do
Right.
so much better just working for myself.
Yeah.
I really do. I like the freedom of it. There is a misconception though, because people that look at you working for yourself, they're like, oh gosh, I wish I was you. You've got it made. You don't have to work if you don't want to.
Well,
And,
that's not
you know,
true.
right. The thing about it is that I am never off the clock. I get jealous of my husband sometimes because, we start our day at 4:30 in the morning. And he goes off to work and he's home at 3:30. But he's not taking emails from work at 9 o'clock at night. He's not answering questions at 9 o'clock at night, running out and measuring something at 9 o'clock at night. He's sitting in
Kira,
his chair.
Kira, I want you to listen very carefully. You do
Good
not
luck.
have to measure at 9 o'clock at night. That can wait until the morning.
The problem with internet sales is that if you do not get to them quickly, they will go someplace else. It's a thing. It drives me insane. I can't
But
get
is
up
it
to go to
worth
the
it? Is
bathroom.
it worth it?
I have so many loyal customers. I have so many repeat customers on Etsy. I mean, I've had so many people tell me that they have tried to sell on Etsy and failed and talked about how hard it is to sell on Etsy.
It
And
is
I
hard.
looked it up. Yeah, I looked it up one time. There's like 2.5 million sellers on Etsy. And I don't even dare to guess how many of those people sell fabric or textiles, but I've got a different product. I'm not just selling the item, I'm selling the story with the item, and I'm selling the books to back up. I've got this
Yeah.
whole package that I'm giving people. And part of that is being personable, and part of that is being reachable. They have these programs where you can be a star seller, and they do that on both eBay and Etsy and whatnot. But one of the things is that you have to answer questions timely within 24 hours, but it's worth it because it pays me back in business, and I don't spend all night doing it. I just don't ever feel like I'm off the clock. That's the thing that's hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm not working over the weekend, which I don't usually work on the weekends unless I'm going to an auction or a sale, but that's not work. That's just fun. But yeah, if I'm not working, I'm constantly getting paid, which is nice. I've got the little cash register sound on my phone, and every time an order comes in, even my grandchildren, they're 7 and 5, they're like, "Grammy's got money."
I love it. We didn't touch on the storytelling part of what makes you different is that there's the story aspect of it. So talk about that.
I wanted to be a writer for as long as I can remember. Since I was in school, that was the only thing I was ever going to do. It was always on my brain. I'm going to write. There was never a backup plan ever. It's just I want to write, period. And I didn't go to college. One, yes, I married very young, but even without that, I never wanted to go to college. I was a really good student. I just didn't want to go. It's like I didn't feel like I had to go to college if I knew how to tell a story. It's like you don't think you can teach storytelling. You either have it or you don't have it. So anyway, I had a lot of years of trial and error and rejections and failure in my 20s and 30s with trying to write, and I'd given it up. I did finally publish some magazine articles in my 30s, but when I got divorced, I needed jobs that paid me money. So getting into buying and selling wasn't something that I thought, oh, well, I'm going to try that. I always wanted to do that. No, it was something like, I wonder if I can make money doing this so that I can support myself and support my daughter. So what happened was that, I had these two shops, and I think storytellers are people watchers inherently. And I had all these stories that were bubbling out of me when I would go to an auction and I would meet people and go up against the competition or get annoyed by this shady auctioneer, or there was always something that I wanted to talk about. So it started to like write little essays on my listing pages when I would sell something, especially on Etsy. This fabric came from so and so, and I had to go up against Krabby Patty to get this fabric. And Sir Grumples was a pain in my rear end that day. He's an auctioneer, so I had all these little clever names for the people that I came in contact with. And this personal element started to evolve. Suddenly I was more than a shop. Suddenly I was a source, and people wanted to create things using things in my shop because it had a story behind it. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people that buy things that once belonged to somebody else, a lot of people want to know the history of where it came from or something to hang on to. So I
Mm-hmm.
was giving them that.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened, a lot of my customers started to say, you really need to write a book. You really need to put all of these stories full length into a book. And it was so strange to me that it came completely full circle, and I wasn't expecting it. But initially I'm like, oh my gosh, when am I going to find the time to write a book? You know, but I found the time. I started my day with that, and I remembered how much I loved it, how much I missed it being a part of my life. So yeah, so I embraced it, and I did one book, and then I did a second book. There is a third one I'm working on, but yeah, it's fun.
So I am not really a jewelry person, so I don't have a lot of jewelry, but I do have a collection of earrings, and every single pair of earrings has a story. I purchased these earrings from a woman who picked up beach glass along Lake Michigan in Wisconsin, and then she curates it into earrings, right? She curates the beach glass into earrings. So, and I bought it at the art festival. I mean, I know the story behind the pair of earrings that I'm wearing. So when someone says to me, "Oh, I love your earrings," I don't say, "Oh, I got them at Ross." I say these came from the art festival in 2 years ago from a vendor from Wisconsin.
Daughter-in-law loves beach glass.
But the
Yeah.
story to me is important, which is why I don't have a lot of jewelry, because if it doesn't have a story, it doesn't have any meaning for me. Art's the same way. There are people who just let an interior designer put art on their walls, and then there's people who purchase art because it tells them a story, and they want to be part of that story, and they want that story on their walls. I'm the same way with my earrings. So I understand how important that story is when they're buying the fabric from you, because when they make something from that fabric, they can tell that story to the person who buys it from them or the person they give it to. This came from an auction in Pennsylvania from a house that was 200 years old, and the fabric was was probably from 1940, yada yada. I mean, they can tell the story. They can tell the story when they pass it along, and that means more than the actual product in the long run.
I had a woman that made an entire quilt from parts in my shop from all the different estate collections, because the different categories in my shop, one of my friends calls them my rooms, but they're all named after whatever estate they came from. And so she was collecting from all these different estates, but then she was keeping a journal as well. Well, this quilt came from here, this part came from here, this part came from here. I was excited by that. I'm like, that's amazing that you're doing that. I love it. And I put notes in all of my packages because I'm all about free advertising. You talked about investing in business. I'm all about free advertising every single chance I get. So, I'm sending out dozens and dozens of packages each week. Why wouldn't I put a note in the package that says, hey, all the stories you're reading, there's a book too, and so I can promote the books and talk about the books. And I can say, okay, that piece of these bark cloth that you just bought, well, that came from the Black Hole series in book 2, and it's just, but then
Well, I
you could
love
also
that.
write something personal. So I don't know. I'm a big note giver, and people have said that they appreciate it. It's, sold books for me. It's a great way to spread your circle, I guess, make it more personal.
My sister made me this Star Wars purse. Isn't it beautiful?
It's so cute. It is
Isn't it
beautiful. Wow.
beautiful? The story part of this is that she also makes these rope bowls, and she had leftover fabric from the purse. So she used the fabric to make a rope bowl. And I think that part of the story, the fact that she used the fabric from the purse to make the rope bowl, is the best
Yeah.
part. The purse is fantastic, but the bowl with the leftover fabric, wow, it just makes everything perfect. And that's one of those situations where my sister is amazing at making these purses, but she don't want to sell them.
No, it's a joy.
Yeah, it's a joy. She does now get paid to teach other people how to make the purses, though. So she's
Well,
turned
that's
that part of
something.
it into a business. So there's just because you have a hobby that you don't want to monetize doesn't mean you can't monetize part of your hobby. My sister has monetized teaching people how to do her hobby.
I mean, yeah, I go to when I go to these quilt guild things, my shop is all about reusing as well. And I have a following of people that appreciate being able to recycle, to reuse, to upcycle, to use what's already out there. And one of the things that I like to do is felt my own wool with old wool clothing, like wool
Oh,
sweaters that
wow.
have holes in them, or,
Yeah.
but you can felt it yourself, and then I cut it into pieces and make stacks, and people use it for applique, and they use it for all sorts of amazing things. But it's fun to go to the quilting guilds and tell them how they can felt wool for applique in their quilts, and so I get to teach a little bit of what I've learned as well, and I get to sell books, I get to sell fabric, I get to sell Grammy whammies. I'm getting paid to advertise, which is awesome.
Tell the audience how to get a hold of you. What's the best way to find you?
If you are a fabric and textile enthusiast, come on over to Dot Oddity, check it out. It's an adventure. I've had people tell me they've spent hours on my site just reading. You can buy the books there and I can sign the books there. So even if you're not a textile person, but you know somebody who is, the books kind of make a fun gift. So I can do that. You can, of course, find the books on Amazon as well. I'm on Instagram under Dot Oddity, and I do a lot of videos on dating fabric and cleaning fabric and specials related to the shop. Anyway, you can find me on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. That's under Kira Hartley Klinger. Less active there, but I will read it eventually. I have a Facebook author page. So, yeah,
Excellent.
give me a holler.
All right. And Hartley is your maiden name?
Hartley is my maiden name. Yes.
My grandmother was a Hartley. So we may be related.
And see, small world. The world just gets smaller. I think we talked about it though, and like you had really unique names attached to Hartley, and I have like Donald attached to Hartley. So
Yeah, my ancestors who came here in 1890 or something like that were my ancestor is Gamaliel and his brother is Gascon. Anyway, okay. Kira Hartley Klinger, this is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
wow, I'm just most grateful to have a chance at this life. I mean, I didn't feel that way when I was unhappily married, but it's a great big giant world out there, and I'm grateful for the people that have supported me, the people that surrounded me. You know, people are everything. Money is not.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for women solopreneurs over 40 who understand that gratitude is truly a business strategy. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Solily. To connect with our guest and get all the links that we've talked about, head over to the show notes at gratitudegeek.com. I've been your host, Kandas Rodarte. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.